Now let us understand how we are going to structure our app. In a nutshell, structuring an app refers to dividing concerns into their own manageable units. You can think of this process as writing components, or in the case of Node.js, writing modules that will collectively result in our chat application. By creating these units or modules, you create a highly manageable application design structure. And this way, adding a feature and or debugging becomes really simple. Your code base looks clean and is easy to understand and comprehend even if you revisit it after a while. Throughout software development, there are a number of ways which developers employ to separate these concerns and create a meaningful application architecture. In web development, you will often come across MVC or Model View Controller as a popular application design architecture. In an MVC style app, a model is essentially responsible for storing and retrieving data while the controller governs and manages the flow of all data in the application. The user in this case sees the view or the user interface, and using any controls on the UI triggers associated methods or actions in the controller. This sort of a broad design style is one of the styles that can be employed when designing a Node.js app. Since we are using the Express framework, it is important to reiterate that Express is not an opinionated framework, which means that it does not force upon a specific application architecture. And whether you use MVC or something else, it is entirely upon the developer to take his or her own call as far as the application structure is concerned. For our purposes, we will not implement a strict MVC architecture. So let's see how we are going to structure our chat application. At the core, our Express app will be quite simply a file called server.js. This will be the core Express app that will serve as the entry point, and this will be the file that you will invoke by typing node server.js on the console. This is also the file where we will bring the Express framework into our application. This is also where we will mount our actual logic and code for the chat application. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense yet. Express allows you to write more than one discrete applications that can run on their own routes as a part of one big app. So for instance, a front-end site and a limited access user dashboard can be thought of as two applications running as a part of one big Express app. We don't have multiple apps running here, but this will serve to give you a taste of this design style. Into our ChatCat app, we will plug in a routing module where we will define all our routes and their corresponding route handlers. We will also look at various methods for declaring routes while building this module. Once you have a router module in place, adding, editing, or removing routes and their handlers becomes really easy. Next, we will create a configuration loader module. Configuration here refers to various elements that are required by the app to access resources such as access credentials when incorporating Facebook and Twitter authentication into our app. This module will load the appropriate credentials and will make it available for other modules to use as needed. As mentioned earlier, our application would require services of a database. By creating a dedicated module for the database, we will declare methods that can be used for easily accessing and writing to a MongoDB database hosted on mongolab.com. This way, database methods can be brought in across any part of our app by simply importing in this module, and this module itself will abstract how it accesses and transacts with MongoDB under the hood. Next, we will create a module that allows us to handle sessions. This way, we can control how and where data persists across the application. I mentioned earlier that users would be able to log into this app using their Facebook or Twitter accounts. Therefore, we will write modules which allow us to integrate social authentication with ease. We'll specifically write two modules, one each for Facebook and Twitter. Now, since WebSockets will be used in this project, we'll create its own module as well. And we'll also create a module that allows us to manage error logging, because this way we can monitor our application and take action if an error was supposed to occur. Besides these discrete modules, we will also write a helper module which will be used to contain miscellaneous functions that do the heavy lifting for certain specific tasks. This will be sort of a library of methods that can be reused whenever needed by simply bringing the module in and accessing a particular method as needed. So this was an overview of our project and how we are planning to separate our concerns into discrete components for better manageability and an optimized development workflow. Let's take the next step forward.